So Donald Trump suggests that he might try to postpone the presidential election. You know why he can't do it? Because justice matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So, given that Donald Trump tweeted out that he is thinking about postponing the presidential election, we have now been asking ourselves for the last 24 hours, can a president do that? The answer is no. More precisely, the answer is, oh, hell no. Let's first have a look at Donald Trump's tweet. He tweeted out, with universal mail-in voting, not absentee voting, which is good, 2020 will be the most inaccurate and fraudulent election in history. It will be a great embarrassment to the USA. Delay the election until people can properly, securely, and safely vote, with some question marks at the end. Let's talk about some of the basic propositions that make it clear that Donald Trump cannot postpone the presidential election. First of all, the date for the election is set by federal law. And frankly, it's a federal law that was passed back in 1845. And let me read just a short, pertinent piece of that legislation. It says, the electors of president and vice president shall be appointed in each state on the Tuesday next after the first Monday in the month of November. Kind of written in that old English, but what it means is that the election, the vote for president and vice president will be held, shall be held on the Tuesday after the first Monday in November. This year, that would be November 3rd. That is the federal law. President can do nothing about it. Of course, being as it's a federal law, we might ask ourselves, well, then Congress could change it. They could, but let's see what some of the reaction has been by the Republicans to President Trump's suggestion that he might just go ahead and postpone or delay the election himself. Let's have a look at the BBC headline from, I think, today. Republicans to Trump. You can't delay the 2020 election. Seems pretty straightforward. Let's look at what Mitch McConnell has been saying, right? The Grim Reaper of the Senate himself. Somebody who seems always willing to back or forgive or excuse or to justify every Trump crime, abuse, and transgression. Even Mitch McConnell in the Hill stated the following: never in the history of Congress, through wars, depressions, and the Civil War, have we ever not had a federally scheduled election on time. And we'll find a way to do that again this November 3rd. And the reporter asked him a follow-up question. So, are you saying the November 3rd date is set in stone? And Mitch McConnell said, that's right. So let's face it, Mitch McConnell has not been willing to break with the president all that often, but it's pretty clear that Mitch McConnell and every other Republican who has had the backbone to weigh in has said, yeah, the president can't change the presidential election date. So there was another person who weighed into this controversy that caught my attention. And it was in, I think, today's New York Times. I'm losing track of the days here. It was an op-ed that was penned by a guy named Stephen Calabresi. Who is Stephen Calabresi? Well, he's a law professor at Northwestern University School of Law. But really more importantly, he is the co-founder of the Federalist Society. Yes, that Federalist Society. The society that has fed Mitch McConnell an endless stream of hard right judges many of whom are rated unqualified by the American Bar Association, but Mitch McConnell nonetheless crams them down the throats of the American people. We've got a plan to take care of that in January. That's in another video I've posted. But let's have a look at what the co-founder of the Federalist Society said today about Donald Trump's harebrained scheme to delay or postpone the federal election. The headline of the New York Times op-ed is, "Trump might try to postpone the election. That's unconstitutional." And here is part of what Stephen Calabrese writes. Trump's tweet, the one we just read together, is itself grounds for the president's immediate impeachment again by the House of Representatives and his removal from office by the Senate. That's pretty dramatic, pretty straightforward, pretty unambiguous. Trump's tweet suggesting that he'll try to postpone the presidential election in and of itself, according to a founding member of the Federalist Society, is reason for Donald Trump to be impeached again, and this time removed by the Senate. Stephen Calabrese continues. President Trump needs to be told by every Republican in Congress that he cannot postpone the federal election. Doing so would be illegal, unconstitutional, and without precedent in American history. And here is the money line. Anyone who says otherwise should never be elected to Congress again. Let's go back to that. Anyone who fails to hold the position, take the position, tell the president, you cannot lawfully, constitutionally postpone the election. Anybody who is unwilling to take that position should never be elected to public office. Which brings me to Mike Pompeo. Mike Pompeo was asked about this when he was testifying, again, I believe it was today, and he was being questioned by Senator Tim Kaine about this very topic. Is it lawful? Is it constitutional for the president to postpone the upcoming presidential election? Let's have a look at what Mike Pompeo had to say about that.
I sort of want to start there. This is not something that either you or I were prepared to talk about today because I think it happened in the middle of the hearing. The president sent out a tweet that said, quote, "Delay the election until people can properly, securely, and safely vote," question mark. Not saying it will happen, but raising a question. Can a president delay the November presidential election, Mr. Secretary?
Senator, I'm not going to enter a legal judgment on that on the fly this morning.
Mr. Secretary, you are an honors graduate of West Point. You are a graduate of the Harvard Law School. You were on the Harvard Law Review. I was at Harvard Law School, and I went to a lot of Red Sox games. I went on the Harvard Law Review. You are
very kind of you. Thank you.
You are one of the most highly trained and accomplished lawyers who are part of this administration. Can a president delay a presidential election?
Senator, in the end, the Department of Justice, others will make that legal determination. We all should want, I know you do too, Senator Kaine, want to make sure we have an election that everyone is confident in. It's not only free,
Are you indifferent to the date of the election?
It should happen lawfully.
Right.
Yeah.
It should happen lawfully.
Yeah.
So for the record, because you may not want to comment on it, but I do think it's important. A president cannot delay an election. The date of the election is established by Congress. It was established in 1845. There is no ability for a president to delay an election. And I don't think it's that hard a question or one that should lead to any equivocation by somebody who's fourth in line of succession to be president of the United States.
So Mike Pompeo wouldn't even answer the question. There's only one lawful answer. There's only one constitutional answer. Can a president delay, postpone a presidential election? The answer is no. It would be illegal. It would be unconstitutional. But what does Mike Pompeo do? He starts with the smile and the chuckling. Well, you got to ask old Billy Barr is what he settles on. You know, nobody will ever be able to accuse Mike Pompeo of being courageous. You know, I wonder, how would he answer a question like, you know, Mr. Secretary, the Eighth Amendment to the Constitution, that prohibits cruel and unusual punishment, correct? What would he say? Well, you know, you got to ask old Billy Barr. You know, interestingly, old Billy Barr was questioned about a related topic just a few days earlier when he was testifying before Congress. Representative Hakeem Jeffries asked Attorney General Barr, if the president lost in the election in November and he refused to accept the results and he refused to leave office, what would you do? That's a softball question because it's answered by the 20th Amendment to the Constitution. Here's what the 20th Amendment says in part. The terms of the president and the vice president shall end at noon on the 20th day of January. So there is only one acceptable answer, lawful answer, constitutional answer to the question, what if the president refused to leave after he lost? That answer is, as the Attorney General of the United States, I would honor my oath and I would make sure we removed him. We had the Secret Service remove him. He's no longer president. The Constitution dictates that he must go on January 20th at noon. That's what I would do because, you know, I took an oath to support and defend the Constitution, not Donald Trump. That's the only acceptable answer. Let's see how Bill Barr fielded that question from Representative Jeffries.
Donald Trump. Now, you just testified that there's no mechanism for a president to contest an election that has clearly been won by the opponent. Mr. Attorney General, what will you do if Donald Trump loses the election on November 3rd, but refuses to leave office on January 20th?
If the results are clear, I would leave office.
Do you believe that there is any basis or legitimacy to Donald Trump's recent claim that he can't provide an answer as to whether he would leave office?
I really am not familiar with these comments or the context in which they occurred, so I'm not going to give commentary on them.
So Bill Barr's answer is, I would leave office. I would run away. I wouldn't lift a finger to stop the unconstitutional conduct, the illegal conduct of Donald J. Trump if he refused to leave office on January 20th after losing the election. I wouldn't do anything about it. I wouldn't honor my oath. I wouldn't represent the interests of the American people. I would run away. Is that any surprise, folks, that when Bill Barr is presented with a hypothetical, what would you do if Donald J. Trump violated the Constitution? Bill Barr says, I would leave office. And you know what? I believe that. He probably would. But you know who's going to take care of this come January 20th at 12:01 p.m.? The Secret Service. Because at that moment, they will be protecting the President of the United States, Joe Biden. And they will take a trespasser like Donald J. Trump from the White House. They will drag him out by his lapels if need be. Folks, one way we can lay all of this to rest come November 3rd is by getting out to the polls in numbers too big to rig. Too big to rig. Get yourself to the polls, get your family to the polls, get your friends to the polls, your neighbors, get strangers to the polls. Because if you ride to the polls together, you'll have a new friend by the time you arrive. And then come January 20th at 12:01 p.m. the hard work of rebuilding our government, repairing our institutions, and I would argue most importantly, accountability for all of these criminal politicians that have dragged our country down for the past 3.5 years. And yes, it will be a lot of work. And yes, it will be hard. And yes, it will be exhausting and frustrating. But it will also be energizing. Justice is energizing. And justice is coming. Please stay safe, folks. I'll talk to you all soon.